truly understand our youths and the challenges they face?
Are we truly listening to what they're saying or even care about how they feel?
Youth Come Alive is a new and innovative program where we discuss issues that matter, such as spirituality, sexuality, relationships, addictions, careers, and so much more.
Join us on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. on all our streaming platforms.
Youth Come Alive, a program for youth.
Welcome to Defining Your Health. I am your host, Miss Leera Carr, and today we have with us Miss Jemema Arnold. Our topic for today is the effects of grief on mental health. Now, viewers, I know that some of you, in fact, most of us have lost someone in our life at some point in our lives. Today, we're going to hear Miss Jemema's testimony on what that experience has been like for her. We're going to explore a little bit about this very delicate topic and very delicate situation. Here on Defining Your Health, we like to explore all different angles of how it is we can care for our body. Remember, our body is not just one aspect of it. We are, I would say, multi in terms of social and physical and spiritual and mental and psychological. So we're going to talk about how grief affects your mental health and, of course, what Miss Arnold did to cope with that process in her life. I need to mention, Miss Arnold, it is a pleasure to have you here. Mm-hmm. And of course, she is the assistant producer here at the Adventist Television Network. And it is a pleasure for us to have, taking out this time from her busy schedule to be here with us and share this testimony. Miss Arnold, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. Thank you.
I am happy to hear that. Very, very happy to hear that. Now, I know that this is a delicate topic for you, and I want to thank you so much for being open on talking about this. Now, in your own, I would say, opinion, well, before you go into that, tell me a little bit about yourself. What is it like?
Okay. All right. Well, previously, I lost my mom when I was 15 years old. During that time, I didn't know what I was going through, what that stage of life, what was it called? I didn't even know about mental health, So all I know that I've lost her and eventually life goes on. But I started to learn about how I was affected when I was about 20 or 21.
Okay.
So like about 6 years after her passing, then I realized that it did affect me. I was acting as if it didn't. However, in actuality, it did.
I understand. And I definitely want you to know that we here at the Adventist Television Network, we are extending our compassion to you, of course. I know it's been years.
Yeah.
And we also want to extend our compassion to other viewers out there who have lost a loved one. Somebody as significant as a parent. Most definitely that is a very big impact that would have on your life, including your mental health. And Miss Arnold, can you talk to me a little bit about, how do you define grief in a sense? In your own experience, what would you say it is?
Okay, well, I would say it's a series of events, even though it's something, it only happened once, but it already happened. But there's a series of emotion that you go through, and it permanently alters you like forever. So there's no getting over it. However, there is adjusting to it and coping with it.
I understand.
So for me, all I do, how I what comforts me now, I am a mom. So like things that I would wish I could have experienced with my mom, I try to do now with my son. So that is how I really cope with it.
Like that. And I know we don't want to go too fast in our topic
Yeah.
because I already see that you're bringing out a very key point, and that point is just one way how you can cope with it, how you make a difference after you would have lost someone as significant
Yeah.
as your mom. So, viewers, I know that you're hearing it already. Grief is not just a short, maybe 1 month, 2 month process. Actually, there is no specific time frame for how long someone grieves. Okay, and most definitely, we're just hearing Miss Arnold's testimony. We're just hearing what that experience, how it impacted her physical, her social, her spiritual life. And so, Miss Arnold, can you tell me a little bit about before your mom passed away? What was your experience like? You know, having her there in your life.
But I would say it was something that I definitely, I don't want to say took for granted, but I mean, as a teenager, you would expect your mom to be with you through every little milestone.
Yes.
So I was 15. There were things that were new to me that were happening to your body in every little way.
Okay.
So for me, it's very hard now. As I go along, what really bothers me is that if something good happens in my day, I wish I could see her or pick up the phone or sit with her somewhere and talk about it.
Definitely.
That is I would say that is what is affecting me now.
Okay.
You know? So if I have a bad day, I would like to talk to her. If I had a good day, I would like to talk to her. If I had bad news, good news, everything, I wish I could just, oh, well, mommy, you know what happened today? You wouldn't believe what happened today. You know, so things like that, moments like that is when it really hits me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I used to run away from those a lot. I never acknowledged the fact that this is where I'm at and this is what is happening. But I would say that you should allow yourself to grieve and acknowledge the fact that you are, you know?
I like that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, before this point, your relationship with your mom was a close one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am her first daughter. So that was my best friend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that. And in terms of having other siblings, how much more
Okay.
came after
So-
you? You know?
Oh, 3 more. But for them, I had to be strong
Yes.
because now I'm not only a role model, but I'm a big sister, and everything you do reflects back on them, so good or bad. So for me, I just had to, in some cases, I had to brush it off and just keep going, you know? So for me now, I just want to be the best that I can be as if she were here to see. I do have my little sister, who of course I'm a role model to. So everything I do it with caution now.
I like that.
Yeah.
And you also touched on something that I think is very prominent. You know, you touched on that point of puberty.
Yeah.
Right. So going through that. So I know you mentioned losing your mom. Did you have a significant guardian or, you know, maybe a grandma, your dad,
Yes.
you know, who was there?
My dad, he did an amazing job dealing with a teenager. All the moods, all the thinking I am right, thinking I know everything. I would say it was, to me, now when I look back at it, it was a challenge for him. You know, I really think that I put my dad to the test a lot. So I always try to commend him because I am not easy to deal with and I was not easy to deal with. But I think he did a good job. He tried his best. I mean, there were times when my mom had died, I had just, you know, I was going through things puberty, like you mentioned. And there were things that I needed for myself. So going into the shop,
Like the typical girl,
yes, and I don't want to pick up these stuff. And my dad would be the person to get them. So that is something that I remember. And I really, really love that about him. He wasn't ashamed. I was ashamed to pick up the stuff that I needed, and he would go into the shop and he picked them up and with no care in the world.
I understand.
Yeah.
And can we talk about a little bit? At what point after mom passed away did you realize that you were grieving?
Okay, I would say,
Were you before you answer? Were you having, like, I would say, like that rebellion phase? Did you get angry? Did you have panic
course.
attacks, depression? What can
my biggest things were having freedom to go where I want to go. But that would have been a problem with my mom because that is not something she would have allowed any at all.
Okay.
So I would say that I took that for advantage, being that she wasn't around. And even when I was told no, I still used to go on things like that, and I would use her death as an advantage, like, oh well, my man and honor than my ma, so I can't tell me nothing like that. Of course it was wrong, but yes, I used to.
That was
yes, and that was when I used to say, I am doing this the wrong way, and I should just acknowledge the fact that yes, she's not here, but there's a way that you do things, and you have to do it the right way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that means mom was like a dominant figure or a central figure in terms of establishing the ground rules.
Yes,
at home,
absolutely.
the discipline.
Yep.
And this is very interesting, because I find commonly in Belizean households, for the most part, is that women, I'm not sure why it is this way in our society, but it really does seem like the women are the ones who are like more, don't do this, don't do that in terms of
and
principles.
then we would listen.
Yes. But
That
I'm
is
not sure
true.
if it is like that for every household. And that is not what we're trying to promote.
Correct.
But that is just really what I've observed.
I would say that was the case because her and my dad were not together. So she kind of had to.
Okay.
She kind of had to set the rules.
That's a very key point.
Yeah.
And I like that you mentioned that too, because really and truly, I have observed that aspect mostly in single parent
Correct.
families.
Correct.
That's where we see the
right. It's like they don't really have a choice. They have to.
They have to be.
They have to.
Definitely. Okay. And coming from that point, we you recognize that this was, you were grieving and stuff.
Yeah.
What are some signs that you saw coming out, in terms of your life, and at what different stages? Maybe someone out there is grieving and perhaps they don't know how to acknowledge or accept that, maybe I'm grieving. Perhaps you're listening to us right now and, yes, you might be feeling down and you probably do have some activity that you're engaged in that you're probably using as a means to express how you feel. Can you touch on, I would say, maybe just some little things that you would say that shows, what, I am grieving? And then we can talk about when did you say you will get some help, if you got some help.
Okay, so it would be the fact that things would happen or things would bother me and I did not acknowledge it because the only person I want to tell is her.
Okay.
So I would be going through stuff. My dad, he would only get an attitude. That would have been the signal that something is not right. I was not open to him like at all. And I think that was one of the key
key
things.
opening up.
Yeah. staying close from everybody and everything. And eventually, what helped me was writing. I love to write. I love to read and I love to write. So what I did was to write everything that I would say to her in
So
a
you had a
book.
journal.
Correct.
I
Correct.
like. So we always hear that journaling helps, or having a diary,
Yeah.
something. So you wrote most of the
As soon,
times.
yeah, every single thing. As soon as something came up, I would write it down. And that is something that I still do now. If I have an idea, I would write it down. If I have a dream or a goal, I would write it down. So that is what helped me. I still wouldn't open to somebody, but I would write it down to get it out.
And journaling is one of the, I would say, smartest ways to kind of enhance memory. It does help with coping, emotional
does,
stability.
yeah.
It is a therapy.
Yeah.
So I like that you discovered that on your own.
I did actually.
I like that. So I also want to ask something else, Miss Arnold. You mentioned that you also had other siblings who were younger. How did this, I mean, because typically we normally see in families where mommy goes missing and daddy is there. Typically we would see that the elder sibling, if it is a young woman, she would have to kind of take up the motherly duties.
In most cases, yes.
How did you
most cases.
did you have to do some of that?
Most of it, because we still had my grandmom,
Wonderful.
who we had to, check in and everything we would have to ask her about.
Okay.
However, like I said, I don't think just for me, my little sister is closed in as well.
Okay.
So I eventually learned her, and I would have to ask her, what is it that is bothering you, and how, and so that she could talk.
Yes.
Because I don't know if it's something that we both have, but we're closed in. We don't open up to everybody. So I know when something is bothering her, and she's very, 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 very quiet. So I would have to read her and ask her over and over and over to get it out.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Does that, when you guys talk, when you converse, does having her also help you, I would say,
Of
to
course.
cope?
Yes, because when I talk about stuff that bothers me, then she comes out. Then she would say, and I had a struggle with this, so that was difficult for me too. So I would say I open up to her a lot, and I let her know that you could tell me anything, absolutely anything, and I think that helped her to get things out and to get things off of her mind.
I love that. So far I have heard from you in terms of, just how you coped with this process, is that one coping mechanism is journaling. Another one is talking with a loved one. And primarily having a parent as a central figure, a guardian, somebody who is going to just kind of be there in that process.
That is key, because the last thing you need is to feel that you're alone while you're grieving. I think that would it's tragic. So you do need somebody to be right there. It's needed. It's not even something that you want. So I thank God for my granny many days, because up to now, like now I get, when I have good days and bad days, I would go to her.
Yes.
And she now becomes my best friend for that.
I like this. And I want to mention, because maybe the viewers online, perhaps you did not lose a mom or maybe a dad, but maybe it was a spouse, a sibling, or even one of your children. Probably those people who are more close in the neutral family. So the concept and idea is, how do you have this support system going in your life? How do you establish having good relationships even though you are grieving?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to acknowledge. You have to know that, okay, this is bothering me and I need to do something about it to make myself better. So for me, I I would say my strongest support system, they're my aunts, because they're like, even though my grandmom is as close as I get to my mom, because she came from her, but she has sisters as well that loved her and that miss her. So I would ask them, like, when you guys were growing up together, what is it that you remember most about her? Because we all have different memories and aspects. We all did get a different version of her. My grandmom received her as a daughter,
Yes.
the others as a sister. For me, it was my mom. So it was all different versions of her. So I built that system mostly with her brothers and sisters.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that that's a blessing.
Yeah,
That has to be a blessing.
it is.
So, in order for you to enjoy that blessing, you have to be open.
You have to acknowledge the fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I like that. And before we kind of get into where you are now and, talking about just how your life have changed living with this type of loss, I want to ask, you mentioned earlier, there were some bad decisions that you made, right? And you know that we don't really necessarily know the future because we're not God, right?
Right.
And so we really don't know how different your life would have been if mom was still there. But we know that it would have been different.
Absolutely.
Because you know that there are some things that you would have never done if mom was
Right.
here, right? So I want to ask, maybe you don't have to go into details because I do know that this is a very delicate topic, but I want to ask in general, were you grounded in terms of Christian principles? Was your mom Christian before, or
Yes. So all our lives we've been Adventists, and once she passed away, like immediately the same day was when, well, I didn't know that she made an oath with my dad that it was his responsibility. Of course, she was sick and we knew, but we didn't want to accept it. So the same day was when I had to immediately transition into living with my dad. So he's not a Seventh-day Adventist. However, he kept his promise to her. He is a Baptist and they go to church on Sundays. So he would ensure that I still do everything that I should do, go to church on Sabbath, attend whatever youth groups, whatever. And I was like, why you still keep this up? Because she's not here anymore, So, but he instilled it and it was written in stone. It wasn't a yes or a no. However, I had to go to church on Sabbath and Sundays, right?
because you had to?
Yes. So there were times when I rebelled against that. And of course, it was a problem. I still had to go. My biggest thing was to be out with friends on Friday nights and Saturday nights, knowing it wasn't right, but it was norm.
Yeah.
It was the norm at that time. So I was like, how is it that I never get to attend these events and I want to be my own person and whatever and whatever. And my dad wouldn't even address the fact that that was what I was interested in. He just made it clear that you still have to go to church and you still have to abide by my rules,
I get it.
So I still had to do these. Of course, it reached to a point where I didn't do it
Yes.
because I am 18 now and I'm going to do what I want to do. However, that phase didn't last long because I nipped it in the bud very quickly. I learned. I did some stuff and I learned immediately, that what my dad was saying was absolutely right.
Absolutely right.
So I just came out of it and I was back on the right track.
I like this so much because that means that our viewers, for some of our other young viewers who are not 18 as yet, perhaps you are going through some phases. Maybe you may not have lost a loved one, but you do feel that same desire for
There's
freedom.
still a lesson. There's still a lesson here for you.
Definitely. And we do have, as young people, that desire, especially when you're grown in a very, I would say, Adventist home, we know how the Adventist homes are.
Yeah.
It's structured, it's organized, it does have its liberties, but when you are young, you really don't see all of
No,
that.
you don't
And
want to see that.
Right. And most of the times, we make friendships with individuals who are not necessarily in our
Right.
faith. And we love them because when you're a teenager, you just love friends.
Right.
So going out there, like Miss Arnold said, she recognized very quickly that her decision, was something that she needed to change, and she did that. So, Miss Arnold, I want to really, before we talk about, like I said, where you are now, I want to ask you, what is the biggest change that you saw in your life after you lost your mom? And just before you answer that, I want to ask another question based on something that you said. You mentioned that you guys knew that mommy was sick,
Yeah.
right? Was it a case of knowing that mommy was sick and knowing that she would recover, hoping that she would recover? Or did you know that mommy was sick and at one point she wouldn't be with you guys anymore?
Okay. So yes, she traveled with epilepsy, and what used to bother me the most was hearing, because while you're young and you're like, how comes that doesn't happen to me, and it happens to you? Seeing your mom in pain in every episode of the attack. So I would ask, so how did you one day just wake up with this? And my grandmom and my aunts would be like, oh, well, she had this immediately after you were born. So I was like, oh my goodness, that's my fault. So they used to try to tell me, no, that's not how it worked. But how else could I think of it? She had it as soon as I was born, and that for me stood out through my entire life, because as women, we go through things, and giving birth does leave effects on a woman.
Yes.
So for me, it really bothered me, because there's a lot of women out, and young females like myself or younger, they're having kids with no support. No, the kid's father is not around, they don't know how. I mean, when you're giving birth, it's a life and death situation, and I think something struck in the event of she having me. Something after that didn't go well, and she was left with that. So it stuck with me. It didn't sit right, but it was there. And it bothered me a lot, because we go through a lot to bring kids here. And it's really, really something that should be taken more seriously, giving birth. So I used to tell her that you should have never had me if that is what you left with, Now you're sick for 15 years. And we tried a lot of treatment as families. We visited a lot of physicians, and nothing helped, nothing worked. She was on medication, and these didn't work. So eventually there came a time when the doctor did told us that one of these days she's going to go into these attacks and she's not going to come back out. So it was something that we knew, we just didn't want to accept it.
And before I had asked you another question.
The change?
Yes.
What
was the biggest change?
Okay, so it would be, I learned to appreciate people more, and for me as a mom now, I learned to do more, because we really don't know how much time we have left.
Yeah.
So in everything that I do, I would definitely, my son would be first, every single thing. Everything that I'm doing for myself is to give him a better life, because there were many times I had to fend for myself for the things that I want. So because there wasn't any really backup system, there wasn't any thing that she left in place, for us to continue. So I'm doing that now for my son.
That is amazing. And viewers, I don't want to apologize. I said it, I do not want to apologize for the solemnity of our conversation today because this is a very delicate topic and grief is always something that really touches us very deep down inside. And Miss Arnold has shared with us, some of the physical aspects of being affected in terms of, that rebellion point. She shared with us some points that she had used to cope with losing mom in her life. So we're going to come back in our other part. We're going to talk about the mental health difficulties that you go through when you are grieving. And of course, we want to mention other areas how you can cope with this. So please stay tuned with us. We are coming back here on Defending Your Health. Thank you, viewers, so much. We're going to be back shortly.
Pathfinders from all over the globe. Are you ready for World Pathfinder Day 2022? Every day, we should be Pathfinders who want to make a difference and share Jesus' love with others. This year, we are challenging you, Pathfinder, to change the world. You must be fearless, you must be committed, and above all, you must trust in God. He is the one who has called you to go and share the beauty of the gospel, to go and change lives with His love. We know that you can change the world. You are Pathfinder Strong. See you all September 17th, 2022 for World Pathfinder Day.
You might be asking, who are Seventh-day Adventists? Commonly known as Adventists, we are a Christian movement established in 1863. We have 28 fundamental beliefs and more than 20 million members. We also observe the seventh-day Sabbath. Worldwide, we have more than 162,000 congregations. We serve countless communities with our education institutions.
Hi, viewers. Welcome back to Defining Your Health. I am your host, Miss Leera Carr, and we have with us today Jemema Arnold, the co-producer for the Adventist Television Network. Today, our topic is the effects of grief on mental health. And we already started to explore Miss Arnold's testimony on what it has been like for her losing her mother. We also talked about some points of her coping during that process, how it affected her. And of course, we touched on having a support system. Now, what we want to talk a little bit about in this part is the mental aspect of it. How, the effects of grief in terms of that mental health aspect. That's what we want to talk about. If you've had your own experience, I want to encourage you to share it with us in the comment section. Please let us know how you managed to cope with losing a loved one in your life. Miss Arnold, how are you feeling?
I'm still good.
You're still good.
I'm
Wonderful.
excited to share.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, I know that you went through a period of crying. I know that you probably had moments of sadness. Tell me about what extent, to what extent did this loss affect you in terms of going about your daily activities? How did you perform in school? Did you started to fail? If you had an interest in a hobby, did you lose that interest? How did this affect your mental drive, your ambitions, who you were as a person?
Okay. So academically in school, it never bothered me because I always wanted to make her proud. So she passed away. I was in third form doing exams to go to fourth form. So it was really hard Fortunately, it was the end of the exams, so it didn't really affect me much. However, I still had a whole other year to do. Praise God, my academic grades did not fail. They actually increased because I just wanted to make her proud. I wanted to graduate. My hobbies would have been, had always been to be in choir and to be in any musical activity that there is. I used to like drama as well. I used to be very good at drama. However, I haven't done that in a while. But music is something that I take very seriously more now because she used to always enjoy to see me sing and things like that. However, I used to be afraid to go up in church. And well, now I would go and do my specials
Yes.
in honor of her, of course, apart from honoring God. But I would just imagine that she would look at her daughter up there and say, how proud she is. However, I still get that from her church sisters and brothers. So I still feel appreciated in that manner. However, I haven't let that took control of my life. I just still want to do better because none of us are going to be here forever.
Forever.
However, I just want to be the best that I can be now for my son.
That is really a beautiful, commendable, and strong approach for someone, at your age at that point in time to take. I don't think there is many of us who actually cope in such a positive way
Right.
in terms of not allowing it to affect the academic part or even your interests. But in terms, well, you already spoke earlier on how losing her kind of affected the spiritual part at some point.
It did. Because I feel as if while I was growing up, I feel like I just used to go to church because she took us. I didn't see my purpose. So immediately once I was 18 and church was not on my list of things to attend or to do, I still had a spiritual relationship with Christ. However,
It was not
no,
deep.
it wasn't.
It was just
It wasn't
on that
there.
surface.
It just wasn't there for me because I just thought that, we only used to, I don't see the point of going to church and I don't see the point of this and that. And I used to love wearing jewelry a lot. So that for me was a big thing. So once I was 18, I pierced my ears, all kind of thing. I just wanted to know how these things feel. So now when I would look back and I would see pictures of myself, I would be so disappointed that I did that to my body. I had some tattoos. I still have them, but I wish I never did any of these things because now I see exactly what she was talking about, and eventually I learned what the Bible said about these things, how it affects your image as a woman and as a woman of Christ. Now, for me, I see myself as a virtuous woman. So there's a lot of things I don't do, not because I am told or I was taught, but because I know and I know it's right. So I thank God that I haven't drifted. I did, however, I came back.
Yes.
I didn't go too far. And one of the principles I would say that stood out growing up as an Adventist in an Adventist home, Adventist schools, primary and high schools, I would say, now when I'm out in the world, anywhere that I go, I stand out.
That's right.
Because of our principles. And immediately you go somewhere and people know that you're not a normal individual. There's something about you and they acknowledge that. So that is something that I am mostly grateful for. That even though after she passed away, my dad instilled it. My uncle as well. He's one of my role models because while he was practicing to become a pastor, he never forgot me, So there would be cases whereby he had to be all over the place preaching, and I would be like, why is it that I have to go with you? This is your dream and it has nothing to do with me. But he was just like, well, he didn't say it, but he showed it. He didn't want me to be distracted. So while he would go to the churches to preach, I would be there and I would have to lead song service. And it really used to bother me a lot because I just wanted to be out with my friends doing something that I want to do. But the verse in the Bible that says, train a child in the way they should be, and I am old now and I didn't forget. So even when they're old, they're not going to forget. And I thank God for that. And I thank them for that as well.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I hope that our parents who are watching are encouraged, because as you can see, what you instill within your child at that very tender age is what is going to come out at some point when they get older. Even if they turn away, there is still the prick of God's Holy Spirit who is there with them, convicting them for them to come back. So parents, do not stop praying. And Miss Arnold, really I don't know if I'm supposed to be happy about something that you said that were not normal, because the opposite of normal is abnormal, and I don't want to think that we're abnormal in certain settings. So I think what you're saying definitely is that when you go out there into the world, you are recognized as having a light.
Yes.
You are indeed seen to be very different. The way you talk, the way you smile,
everything,
the way you move, the way everything, your demeanor is different.
Yeah, that happens everywhere that I go. Everywhere, my job, everywhere.
I love it. I love it so much. And I don't know if you know, or maybe you do know, but when you were going through that moment, but even when you turned 18 and making the decision to say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to follow through with the whole church thing. Let's put that in quotations. The decision to, just wanting to beautify yourself a little bit more in terms of adding jewelry and, maybe going that extra mile, perhaps even the clothes that you chose to wear at some point, and the tattooing and everything. I know that, according to psychology, right, that whenever we go to the external, to add to the external, it is really because of what is happening inside.
There's something that you're not pleased with about yourself. However, you just don't know. I look back and I feel so bad because I just thought of myself as not being enough as I were. And I feel bad for myself because I would never think of myself like that
way again. I
ever.
am so happy, and I know that we have viewers who can relate to Miss Arnold's testimony. As a matter of fact, I too can relate to that. It really does take God in His mercy to reach out to us when we are at those low points in our lives, to bring us back to recognize that our value is not in the beautification of our outward appearance, but it is really where your heart is with God.
Absolutely.
And I think that is coming out. Viewers, some of our mommies and daddies, you know what you did and what you went through when you were younger, so I know you can relate to this. And again, our topic is the effects of grief on mental health, and Miss Arnold is sharing her testimony with us. We are actually just discussing the mental effects of it, and we touched on some of those points. Actually, Miss Arnold's response was a very positive one to how she coped with grief mentally. And we know that there are actually negative mental health attributes that comes out after you lose someone. We have addictions that comes into play, the use of drugs. Perhaps you turn to sexual intercourse. Maybe you go into something like pornography. You probably just start to do habits that are not beneficial to you. there's something else key that we need to talk about before we end our conversation today. And I want to ask you, there your surrounding, your environment, your caregivers, your aunts, the uncles, you there was something that you needed from them. There's something that you needed from them because mommy was missing. What did you expect from them? And did they give you that?
What I expected was I just wanted somebody to be there like she would have. But eventually, everyone had their own lives, and I had to accept that. So I had to create that for myself. I always say that life is hard, it's sad, it's painful. But I don't like to feel sad. I don't like to be negative. So for me, I used to say, you know what? Life is not that hard for me to want to drink alcohol all the time. It doesn't even taste good, to be honest. So it was something that you would say if I had carried it out, it would have been to please friends and to fit in. And drugs is something I never tried. So I just say with all that has happened, I just thank God that I've never forgotten him and he has never forgotten me. So I wasn't driven to that point to any kind of addiction, or I was never the type to be carried away or influenced. You know, I am always the one to influence others. So I look back at it and I always thank God. And like I told you, everywhere you go, you stand out, right? So I remember my first job when I used to work at Birdsell. And like every time we get paid, like the girls would be like, oh, what are we going tonight? We're going partying. And they're like, oh, they're not tired. They're like, to me, there is literally no fun in some of the things that they did. So it wasn't even because of, I don't think it was because of religion or anything. It's just something that didn't get me excited. I always preferred going home and watching TV. And of course, once I had my son, to give him the rest of my time that I had left. So now when they would see me, they would be like, they always knew something was different and there was something about me. So I thank God for the things that were instilled. However, I just feel like they really played a vital role in the person that I am today.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. Did you find that they reached out a lot more since mom wasn't there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to say to our viewers, because also too, you may not consciously make yourself be aware of this. Maybe it's not in your family, but perhaps it is your niece or even a church sister who would have lost somebody significant in their life. It is important for us to recognize that reaching out to those persons,
it helps and it makes a difference.
I like it.
It makes a difference.
Here from first-hand experience with somebody who's gone through it. What is something else that you would want to, I would say, mention that caregivers or, other loved ones who are within this circle, what other things do you think they should do to help the situation better?
Okay, so I would say the ones that are left, the ones that are here, for me, I've never been through like you previously mentioned, addiction and things like that. I've never turned to these ever. But a key point I'd like to touch, not everybody handles grief the same. For me, it was different. I just try to make the best out of every single situation that happens in my life. However, not everybody is strong and not everybody can do it this way. And yes, not everybody is positive. So there are people that are dying with depression. And it's not always going to be because of grief, but there are people who still have their family members alive, but they're not present or they're not active in their lives. So it doesn't have to take somebody to die for you to check on them or for you to support them. It's for you to ask if they need help with anything. There's a lot of young people who are very weak-minded and depression is winning. So I'm glad that that is something that I've never experienced. I want to thank God for that. But it doesn't take grief for you to notice that somebody is not doing well.
Thank you so much, Miss Arnold, for sharing that with us. And getting older, let us talk about how your life have changed and what are some key what is the key approach that you take in terms of being a mother to your child? Because notice she mentioned being a mommy before we even ask. So you know that that is something that is a big part of her life. So can you tell us, Miss Arnold, about, getting older, transitioning into adulthood? How have your life changed, and to who would you say is responsible for this change that has now taken place in your life, or just maturing into the young woman that you are now?
Okay. Well, it would be the principles that were instilled from day one. And I would say it was definitely the support and help that I did not receive that helped me to become who I am today. Of course, when I had gotten pregnant with my son, I was only 20 years old. However, at that same time, I was already signing up for college to continue, but I couldn't because I had to put the first 5 years of his life on pause to be with him. So, of course, I'm continuing now and I'm following my dreams, but I go hard just for him because I honestly I don't want him to end up in this space whereby he's crying out for help in a room filled with people and nobody's hearing him. Nobody takes the time to listen. He might not be able to handle it the way I did. So things like these didn't break me, but they made me strong. And of course, parental support is very, very important. However, I would say at the age of 18, I was basically written off. So everything,
like you were sent out there to be.
Yeah, that you're 18 now and that whatever. But I don't care how much my son rebels or tries to. You're in control because you're the parent, So once I was 18, everything after that I wanted, I had to fend for it and I had to get it for myself. So that is when I met one-on-one with Christ.
Love it.
Because there wasn't anybody, and the desperation of me wanting the things that I want, I could have turned to desperate activities to get them. So that is when I had to had my one-on-one with Christ, and up to now I still have to, because I have big dreams. I am studying to become a lawyer, and
that
I am going to do it.
Amen.
I have to do it, and there's nothing that I possibly see that is going to stop me as long as I have the ability to do so. So every day I pray about it, and God has been very, very good to me because, like I said, I don't have a back support of families that is going to assist you financially. Everything I have to do is on me. So I have to pray more than ever. I prayed as I never have before. But I thank God that I always knew how to,
Yes.
So now in my home, I instill the little things. I let my son know that the little things you have to pray for. You're very privileged. You have food. Yes, it's just me, but there's every little thing you have to pray for. And I always let him know that even though your dad and I are not together, you pray for him and you get on the phone and you talk to him, because that is your dad. He's not my dad,
Yes.
But I still allow him to let his father know that he's grateful for whatever little thing. I try not to instill negative things into him as if, it didn't work out. So yapana the this or the that. No,
none of
he
those
still
things.
loves his father, and I still try to let him know that there's a lot you need to be thankful for, because even though, yes, it didn't work, we are still fortunate, him and I, and me as a single young mother. I believe to myself that I am fortunate because there are people that are going through worse, So everything I had to strongly and solely rely on God for everything.
I like it so much. Miss Arnold, I hear a lot of your faith in God coming out
Yeah.
in this final part of your, I would say, our discussion and of course your testimony. And I do want to mention, if you guys, you probably heard it already, it comes up into one word and it really is God's, well, it's mercy. It's God's mercy. We know that his mercy and his grace is not something that we really deserve.
No.
We know that. But
at
I
all.
love it because I see God's providence unfolding in her life after age 18. Do you notice that she said it was because of the things that was not done for her, which contributed to who she is now. And so sometimes God allows, notice he don't do it, but sometimes he allows us to go through hardships with certain individuals in our life in order for him to be able to get first place. And
Yeah.
that's how she got
Yeah.
first place. I mean, that's how
Absolutely.
God got first place in her life. So I really thank you so much, Miss Arnold, for sharing this testimony. And I just want to recap very quickly before we wrap up, because this testimony has been very touching. I want to recap very quickly on how it is that you can cope with grief as a teenager. And some of those things are journaling.
Yeah, I used to write a lot. There are people who enjoy venting,
Okay.
telling somebody their problems. So
Yes.
sometimes it is very important to be a listening ear to somebody. I mean, you never know what people are going through, and it pays to be nice, be a nice person.
Kindness
Yeah.
works every time.
It does.
I like that. So you touched on the second point, that is finding a loved one or perhaps even a stranger, just to be able to talk about what
Yeah.
you're going through.
Talk about it. You need to talk about it.
Being open.
Yeah.
You mentioned that that's a big thing.
You need to
Acknowledging.
acknowledge and accept the fact that this is where we're at and this is what we're going through, and how are you going to deal with it?
That's right. And of course, opening up is going to help others to open up to you as well.
Yeah.
So viewers, we are at the end of Defining Health for today. Join us again next week. We are so happy that you have been here with us. And before I go, I just want one final word from Ms. Arnold. What do you want to say to somebody out there who is going through grief?
Okay, well, grief is not the end. It is the end of our physical being. But for me, I know that there's a promise that God promises everlasting life. So for me, that is what I hung down to. It is the end of physical but not spiritual life.
Amen. Thank you so much, Ms. Arnold. Thank you, viewers. See you again next week.
As a non-profit organization, the Adventist Television Network solely relies on your financial support. By partnering with us through a monthly donation, you will help us to continue to fulfill the mission in taking the gospel into all the world. For more information, please call 613-9351 or email us at atnfin@cbm.belizeunion.org. Thank you for your prayers and support of the ATN ministry, and together we may hasten the soon coming of our Lord Jesus Christ.